I launched my dream bakery and invited my whole family to the grand opening. Not a single one came. They all chose Rosy's promotion party instead. As I locked up alone, Dad texted, "We need to talk about the bakery." Can you imagine pouring your heart and soul into a dream, working for years, sacrificing everything, only to have the people who were supposed to love you most choose someone else's moment over yours? What if, on the single biggest day of your life, you stood utterly alone, while your entire family toasted champagne at someone else's lavish party? And then, to twist the knife even deeper, the very next morning they show up, not to celebrate you, but to tell you that your dream is a mistake they need to fix? That, my friends, was my brutal reality. My name is Eileen. And at 32, I finally unlocked the doors to Sweet Gatherings, the bakery I had dreamed of, quite literally, since I was 8 years old. I can still close my eyes and feel the warmth of my Grandma Eliza's kitchen, the scent of vanilla and yeast, the faint dusting of flour on my nose as her gentle voice whispered, "Baking is love made visible." I poured that love, that hope, into personal, gold-embossed invitations for every single member of my family. And on opening day, I stood behind my beautiful, handcrafted counter, my heart a raw, exposed nerve, watching my Instagram feed explode with perfect, curated photos from my younger sister Rosy's corporate promotion party. The same party, the same Saturday, the same exact time. Every single one of them. My parents, my siblings, my aunts, uncles, cousins. They all chose her, not me. That night, as the last customer left and I turned the sign to "closed," fighting back hot tears that threatened to blur my vision, my phone buzzed. It was Dad. "We need to discuss the bakery." Not a single "congratulations." Not even a lukewarm "sorry we missed it." Just a cold, sharp blade of business. It was like they hadn't just missed my day, they were already anticipating its failure. But let's rewind a bit. I grew up in Portland, Oregon, in a house where success wasn't just a goal, it was an unspoken, unyielding demand. My father, James Marshall, was a big-shot corporate attorney. His life was 80-hour work weeks, power suits, and a relentless pursuit of prestige. He missed nearly every school play, every parent-teacher conference, every significant milestone, but he never, ever failed to remind us that his sacrifices were what put food on our table and maintained our position in society. My mother, Diane, a hospital administrator, managed our household with clinical precision. Our activities were scheduled with the same meticulousness she applied to organizing hospital departments. Every achievement earned a checkmark in her mental ledger of family success, with extra points awarded for anything that could be gracefully mentioned at charity galas or country club brunches. Then there were my siblings, both walking embodiments of my parents' definition of success. My older brother, Tyler, now 35, followed Dad's footsteps, not into law, but into the equally high-stress world of finance. By 25, he was an investment banker in New York, sending expensive but always impersonal gifts on birthdays, making brief, whirlwind appearances at holidays, always talking about deals, market trends, and ROI, a language I barely understood. My younger sister, Rosy, 29, was the marketing prodigy. She practically flew up the corporate ladder at Tech Fusion, one of those trendy companies with beanbag chairs and cold brew on tap. Mom and Dad beamed with undeniable pride at every promotion, every salary increase, every shiny company perk Rosy flaunted on her meticulously curated social media. Their smiles for her were wide, genuine, unreserved. And then there was me, the middle child. The one with flour perpetually under her fingernails. The one who felt like an outlier in a family of high achievers. My true love affair with baking began when I was 8, in my Grandma Eliza's small, warm kitchen. While my parents pushed Tyler and Rosy toward academic competitions, debate clubs, and prestigious internships, Grandma Eliza taught me something different. She taught me how to feel the perfect consistency of dough between my fingers, how to trust my instincts with a rising loaf. When school stress became overwhelming, she was my refuge. I'd escape to her small house on the outskirts of town, and we would spend hours baking together. Baking is love made visible, she would say, her hands, wrinkled but strong, gently guiding mine as we shaped cinnamon rolls. When someone takes a bite of something you baked, Eileen, they are tasting your heart. Those words lodged in my soul and grew roots, a quiet truth in a family that valued quantifiable achievements above all else. While my siblings collected trophies and certificates, I collected recipes. I meticulously documented every technique Grandma Eliza taught me in a special notebook, adding my own adaptations and whimsical drawings in the margins. I experimented with flavors and textures, bringing my creations to school bake sales, where, much to my secret delight, they always sold out first. My family, however, viewed my passion as cute but ultimately inconsequential. "It's a nice hobby, Eileen," my mother would say, emphasizing the word hobby in that particular tone that made it abundantly clear it was not to be confused with a career. "But you need to focus on activities that build your college applications." During my junior year of high school, desperate for real-world experience, I started working at Bailey's Bake Shop after school. Mrs. Bailey, the owner, became my second mentor. Where Grandma Eliza had taught me the soulful, traditional recipes passed down through generations, Mrs. Bailey showed me the practical, business side of baking. She taught me about profit margins, inventory management, customer service, all the nuts and bolts. Most importantly, she showed me that my dream could be a viable, fulfilling career. "You have magic in your hands, Eileen," Mrs. Bailey told me one afternoon after watching me decorate a particularly challenging wedding cake with effortless grace. "Not everyone can do what you do. Never let anyone convince you that your talent is just a hobby." Those words were a lifeline, a validation that countered the subtle dismissiveness of my own family. When college application season arrived, predictably, my parents pushed me toward pre-med programs. "You've always been good at chemistry," my father reasoned, as if my talent for balancing flavors and understanding the chemical reactions in baking somehow translated to a burning desire to become a doctor. I compromised, majoring in business with a minor in food science, thinking this combination would prepare me for my true goal while appeasing my parents, at least for a while. During my sophomore year of college, Grandma Eliza passed away. The loss was profound, a deep ache in my soul. At the reading of her will, I was surprised to learn she had left me her modest savings account. It wasn't a fortune, but the accompanying words were priceless, to Eileen, who understands that the most important ingredients in any recipe are passion and love. The inheritance wasn't enough to open a bakery immediately, but it was seed money. A tangible vote of confidence from the one person who had always, truly, believed in my dream. It was a beacon in the lonely, ambition-driven landscape of my family. After college, while my siblings launched their impressive careers, I embarked on my own, less glamorous path. I worked 3 jobs, a barista in the mornings, an office assistant during the day, and I baked custom cakes and pastries from my tiny apartment kitchen on weekends. My family viewed this phase as my finding myself period, expecting me to eventually give up and pursue a real career. "Law school applications are still an option, Eileen," Dad would mention casually during holiday dinners, a thinly veiled suggestion. "My firm is always looking for bright young associates. The hospital has a management training program, honey," Mom would add. I could put in a good word. But my vision for sweet gatherings grew clearer, more vibrant, with each passing year. I didn't want just any bakery. I wanted a place that embodied the warmth I felt in Grandma Eliza's kitchen, a gathering spot where people could connect over delicious food made with care. I envisioned a space with comfortable seating, where neighbors would become friends, where families would create traditions around my seasonal specialties. I wanted display cases filled with both innovative creations and perfected classics, including many of Grandma Eliza's cherished recipes. For 7 long years after college, I worked and saved, researched locations, refined my business plan, and painstakingly built my recipe portfolio. Each step brought me closer to my dream, even as my family continued to view it as a phase I would eventually outgrow. The quiet accumulation of these small victories was my secret strength. Finally, after years of searching, I found it, the perfect location for sweet gatherings. It was a charming corner storefront in a neighborhood that was experiencing a beautiful revitalization with large, inviting windows that flooded the space with natural light. The building itself had character, with exposed brick walls and original hardwood floors that needed refinishing but promised to be stunning. Most importantly, it was within my budget, thanks to Grandma Eliza's inheritance and my years of dedicated, sometimes grueling, saving. When I called my family to share the exciting news about signing the lease, their reactions were exactly as I had expected, yet disappointingly, soul-crushingly familiar. A retail lease in this economy? Dad's voice, coming through the phone, carried the same tone he used when discussing risky investments with clients. Send me the paperwork before you sign anything. Better yet, I could invest in this venture and help guide it properly. I knew what that meant. Dad's investment would come with control, his corporate vision superseding mine until sweet gatherings became unrecognizable from my original dream. Mom's response was equally disheartening, wrapped in a veneer of concern. Honey, the restaurant industry has such a high failure rate. It's not too late to apply to graduate school. I ran into Dr. Levinson last week, and he mentioned their hospital administration program is still accepting applications. When I called Rosy, her backhanded compliments cut deeper than outright criticism. Wow, going full steam ahead with the baking thing? That is so brave of you. I could never risk financial security for a passion project. But that's what makes you special, right? You've always marched to your own drum. Tyler was, as usual, the hardest to reach, always between meetings or flights. When I finally got him on the phone, his response was brief and ruthlessly business-focused. Send me your business plan and 5-year projections. Did you account for first-year losses? What is your marketing budget? Have you stress-tested your financial model? No congratulations, no excitement, just immediate skepticism and an unshakable assumption of failure. It was as if they couldn't conceive of success outside their narrow parameters. Despite their reactions, which felt like little nicks and cuts to my spirit, I threw myself into preparing the space. I coordinated with contractors for necessary renovations, navigated the complex, often frustrating, world of health permits and business licenses, and refined my menu until it sparkled with creativity and promise. Every night, I fell into bed utterly exhausted, but deeply fulfilled, one day closer to realizing my vision. During this intense period, I began forming connections with neighboring business owners, a new kind of family. Annie from Bloom and Grow Flowers next door stopped by regularly with coffee and genuine encouragement. Marcus from Cornerstone Books across the street offered marketing advice and promised to stock my pastries in his Reading Nook cafe. We newcomers need to stick together, Annie said one day as we sat on paint buckets in my half-renovated space. This neighborhood has real community potential, and businesses like yours will be the heart of it. Their words were balm to my soul, a stark contrast to the skepticism at home. As opening day approached, I created a special menu featuring items inspired by my family, hoping these namesake creations would communicate what I struggled to express in words, that despite our differences, they remained important to me. I developed James' Power Breakfast Scone with espresso and dark chocolate for Dad. Diane's Elegant Earl Grey Cake with lavender buttercream for Mom. Tyler's Wall Street Walnut Brownies with cream cheese swirls. And Rosy's Marketing Maven Macarons in bright, Instagram-worthy colors. At the center of my display plan was a special corner dedicated to Grandma Eliza. I framed her photo alongside her handwritten recipe cards for cinnamon rolls and apple pie, the first recipes she ever taught me. I lovingly renovated her old wooden rolling pin and placed it on a custom shelf, a quiet tribute to her profound influence. 3 weeks before opening, I sent those personalized, gold-embossed invitations to each family member. I'd invested more than I probably should have on the elegant design, hoping it would convey the significance of the day. Each invitation included a heartfelt, personal note expressing how much their presence would mean to me on this momentous occasion. The responses trickled in with varying degrees of non-commitment. "We'll try to make it if court adjourns early," Dad texted, with a dismissive penciling it in tone. "Board meetings that week might run long," Mom replied vaguely. "Sounds fun." Work is crazy right now, but we'll see what I can do, came Rosy's infuriatingly casual response. Tyler simply said, in meetings that week, we'll check calendar. I tried not to let their lukewarm, almost patronizing, responses dampen my excitement. Perhaps seeing the finished bakery, in all its glory, would change their perspective. Maybe tasting the creations named in their honor would finally help them understand my passion. I clung to that fragile hope. Then, 1 week before my grand opening, Rosy called with her news. I got the promotion to senior marketing director. She squealed into the phone, her voice bursting with unadulterated joy. The company is throwing a huge party next Saturday to celebrate. Everyone will be there. You'll come, right? My heart sank, a heavy stone dropping into a cold well, as I realized her celebration was scheduled for the exact same day as my grand opening. Before I could even respond, my phone buzzed, vibrating with messages from my parents. Did you hear about Rosy's amazing news? So proud. Mom texted. Dinner reservation at Morton's after Rosa's promotion party. Family table for 5, came Dad's message. I stared at my phone, the implication clear, stark, and utterly devastating. They had automatically included me in their celebration plans for Rosy without even acknowledging the devastating conflict with my grand opening, which they had known about for weeks. It was as if my dream was utterly invisible to them. When I gently reminded them of the conflict, the responses were swift, clarifying, and completely dismissive. This is a once-in-a-lifetime achievement for your sister, Eileen, Mom replied, her tone firm. You can have a soft opening another day, Dad suggested, as if years of work, planning, and emotional investment could simply be rescheduled like a dentist appointment. The blatant disregard for my effort, my dreams, my feelings, it was a profound betrayal. I swallowed my disappointment, a bitter pill, and focused with grim determination on the final preparations. The menu was perfected, the space was gleamingly beautiful, marketing materials were distributed, and a small, hopeful write-up even appeared in the local neighborhood paper. I ordered extra ingredients, prepared contingency plans for every imaginable scenario, and scheduled my opening day in meticulous 15-minute increments to ensure everything would be absolutely perfect. The night before opening, I stood alone in the completed space, taking in the quiet, profound realization of my dream. The display cases waited to be filled with my creations. The tables were set with small vases ready for fresh flowers. The gleaming coffee machine promised warmth and connection. Despite my family's undeniable lack of enthusiasm, I allowed a fragile, persistent hope to bloom in my chest. Maybe, just maybe, seeing the finished bakery in all its glory would change everything. Maybe they would finally see it. I woke at 3:30 in the morning on opening day, too excited, too nervous, too hopeful to sleep. Following the minute-by-minute schedule I had painstakingly created, I began bringing my bakery to life. The kitchen filled with the comforting, rich scents of vanilla, cinnamon, and freshly baked bread as I prepared the day's offerings. Each pastry was crafted with precision and deep, abiding love, from the delicate fruit tarts that shimmered like jewels to the hearty artisanal loaves that promised warmth and sustenance. By 7, the display cases were filled with rows of perfectly arranged pastries, each labeled with charming, handwritten cards describing the ingredients and the inspiration behind them. The family-inspired creations occupied prime positions, ready, I hoped, to be appreciated by the very people who had inspired them. At 7:30, Annie arrived with fresh flower arrangements for each table and a special, magnificent bouquet for the counter. "These are on the house, Eileen," she insisted, hugging me tightly. "Today is your day to shine." Marcus appeared shortly after with a handmade sign for his bookshop window, brightly directing customers to the grand opening. "I told all my regulars to stop by," he said, placing a small, beautifully wrapped package on the counter. "A business-warming gift. Open it later." Their genuine support was a lifeline, a glimmer of warmth against the chill of my family's silence. As the clock approached 9 a.m., the official opening time, I checked my phone for the 100th time. No messages from my family. I sent a group text with a photo of the ready bakery, the display cases overflowing, the sunlight streaming in. All set for opening. Hope to see you soon. No response. At 9, with a deep breath and a prayer, I unlocked the doors, turned the sign to open, and welcomed my first customers. A steady stream of neighbors and curious locals filled the morning hours. They ordered coffee, purchased pastries, and many stayed to enjoy their treats at the comfortable tables. The feedback was overwhelmingly positive. "These cinnamon rolls are the best I have ever had," one woman exclaimed, her eyes wide with delight. "I am definitely making this my regular morning stop," a man in a business suit declared, already planning his return. Between serving customers, my eyes constantly darted to the door, my ears strained for the sound of familiar voices, my hand instinctively reaching for my phone. Each time the bell above the entrance chimed, my heart leaped with a desperate hope that it would be a family member. Each time my phone buzzed, I checked it immediately, only to find notifications from service providers or congratulatory messages from friends. By 11, I had served several dozen customers, shared countless smiles, but the faces I most wanted to see remained conspicuously, painfully absent. I sent another text to my family. "Great turnout so far. Special treats with your names on them waiting for you." Still no response. At noon, during a brief lull, I checked social media and immediately wished I hadn't. My feed was filled with photos from Rosy's promotion party, already in full, boisterous swing despite the early hour. There was Dad, looking impossibly proud, raising a champagne toast in a sleek hotel ballroom. There was Mom, her face beaming, adjusting the "Congratulations Director Rosy" banner. There was Tyler, who had apparently flown in for the occasion, his arm around Rosy as they posed for a professional photographer, looking every inch the picture of corporate success. The caption on my mother's post stabbed deepest, "So proud of our successful daughter." The whole family gathered to celebrate this incredible achievement. The whole family. Except me. The words were a fresh wound, a confirmation of betrayal that echoed in the quiet corners of my soul. I quickly put my phone away and plastered on a bright, professional smile as the afternoon crowd began to arrive. The initial rush had slowed, and though a steady trickle of customers continued, it was clear that opening day sales would not meet my projections. Each hour that passed with empty tables felt like a personal failure, despite the genuine enthusiasm of those who did visit. A local reporter who had promised to cover the opening arrived around 2. Lucy Chan from the Neighborhood Chronicle observed my frequent glances toward the door and my increasingly hollow smiles. "Family couldn't make it," she asked gently as she interviewed me about the bakery, her gaze perceptive. I considered lying, but opted for a simple, strained truth. They had another commitment. Lucy's eyes softened with understanding. She shifted her interview questions to focus on my passion for baking and my vision for sweet gatherings as a community space. Her kindness, her unspoken empathy, nearly broke my professional composure, but I managed to maintain my smile until she left, promising a feature in the next edition. By 5 o'clock in the afternoon, the truth was unavoidable, stark, and utterly heartbreaking. Not a single family member had come. Not one had even called or texted during business hours. The special pastries I had created in their honor remained largely unsold, their handwritten name cards a painful, ironic reminder of my naive hope. As closing time approached, customers dwindled to none. I began the cleanup process with mechanical, almost numb, movements, washing dishes, wiping counters, and storing unsold pastries. The day's sales had covered basic expenses, but nothing more. Social media posts from Rosy's celebration continued to appear, each one a fresh wound, videos of speeches, photos of expensive gifts, images of the family I had been born into celebrating without me. At 6:45 p.m., 15 minutes before my official closing, my phone finally buzzed. It was a text from my father. "We need to discuss the bakery." No congratulations, no explanation for their absence, no acknowledgement of my achievement or their broken promises to attend. Just a cold, businesslike statement that implied problems needed solving. It was the final, crushing blow. As I turned the sign to "closed" and locked the front door, the emotions I had been suppressing all day finally broke through, a torrent I could no longer contain. Alone in my beautiful bakery, surrounded by the physical manifestation of my dream and the undeniable evidence of my family's indifference, I sank to the floor and sobbed, heartbroken and utterly betrayed. I don't know how long I sat there, curled up on the cool, hardwood floor, crying until my body ached and my eyes burned. A gentle knock on the glass startled me, pulling me back from the depths of my despair. Annie and Marcus stood outside, their faces etched with concern, peering in. I wiped my tears with the back of my hand, took a shaky breath, and let them in. "We thought you might need friends tonight," Annie said softly, holding up a bottle of champagne she'd clearly brought for a celebration. "First day of business calls for a proper celebration," Marcus added, his voice warm, whether it was perfect or not. He produced 3 glasses from a tote bag. As we sat at one of my bakery tables, toasting my endeavor despite the day's profound disappointments, I realized something quietly, profoundly important. The family I had been born into might never understand or value my dream. But perhaps I was finding a new kind of family right here, in this vibrant neighborhood, with people who showed up when it truly mattered. Their presence was a powerful, comforting antidote to the pervasive loneliness. The morning after my grand opening, I arrived at the bakery early, my eyes still a little puffy, but my resolve hardening. I was determined to move forward, to face my second day of business despite yesterday's crushing disappointment. I focused on adjusting my offerings based on what little had sold well, my hands elbow-deep in dough. The familiar jingling of the bells above the door startled me. Glancing at my watch, I realized I had forgotten to lock the front door, and it was still 30 minutes before opening time. "Sorry, we're not open yet," I called out automatically, not looking up from my work. "That is apparent from the empty tables," my father's crisp, unmistakable voice replied, laced with a barely concealed condescension. My head snapped up, flour dusting my cheek. There, filing into my bakery like a corporate delegation, was my entire family. Dad led the way, immaculate in a business suit, his leather portfolio tucked under one arm like a weapon. Mom followed, her critical gaze sweeping the space, noting every detail with the same clinical expression she used when inspecting hospital departments. Rosy entered next, a designer handbag swinging from her elbow, sunglasses perched on her head despite the cloudy morning, a tablet in her hand displaying Tyler's face, apparently video calling in from New York. "What are you doing here?" I asked, wiping flour from my hands, my voice a shaky whisper. "Family meeting," Dad announced, selecting the largest table in the bakery and gesturing for everyone to sit, as if this were a boardroom and not my sacred dream space. "We need to discuss the bakery situation." "I'm preparing for customers," I said, glancing at the clock, my resolve stiffening. "We open in 30 minutes. Based on what we observed yesterday, I doubt you will be overwhelmed with business," Mom said, her tone sympathetic, but her words cutting like a surgeon's scalpel. I flinched, but tried to maintain composure. "You observed? None of you were here yesterday." "Social media exists for a reason, Eileen," Rosy quipped, tapping her phone. The geotags and check-ins for this place were hardly breaking the internet. My brother's tiny, disembodied voice emerged from the tablet. "I reviewed the neighborhood demographics and foot traffic patterns. This location has problematic fundamentals for a specialty food business." They had been monitoring my opening day from afar, meticulously tracking its perceived failure while simultaneously celebrating Rosy's undeniable success. The realization added a fresh, searing layer of pain to yesterday's wounds. This wasn't just disinterest, it was an active, judgmental assessment. Dad opened his portfolio and removed a stack of papers, crisp and official-looking. "We have been discussing your situation, and we believe we have a solution that will minimize damage." "My situation?" I echoed, anger beginning to simmer beneath my shock, bubbling up like yeast. "Eileen, honey," Mom leaned forward, her voice dropping to the gentle, falsely reassuring tone she used when delivering bad news to hospital patients. "We all understand the appeal of following a dream, but sometimes dreams need to be adjusted to align with reality. We can help you sell this place before you lose everything." Dad continued, sliding documents across the table, each word a direct assault on my vision. I have contacted a commercial real estate agent who specializes in restaurant properties. He believes with minimal losses, we can get you out of this lease and recoup some of your investment. I stared at the papers, realizing with a sick lurch that they were pre-filled listing agreements, ready for my signature. They had prepared these before even seeing my bakery in operation for a full day. Their judgment was preordained. Mom reached into her designer purse and withdrew several folded papers. I took the liberty of completing medical school applications for 3 programs that accept late admissions. Your undergraduate grades were strong enough that with the right personal statement explaining this detour, you could begin classes this fall. Tyler's face on the screen looked almost bored, detached. I have run the numbers, Eileen. Based on industry averages and your location, you are looking at insolvency within 4 months. 6, if you drastically cut expenses, which would further compromise quality and accelerate the failure cycle. Rosy, who had been taking photos of my bakery while they talked, finally joined the conversation, her tone almost magnanimous. Look, it's not all bad news. I convinced my boss to open an entry-level position in our marketing department. The pay is not great, but with your background, you could move up quickly. I'm not supposed to show favoritism, she shrugged, her expression making it clear this was a major concession offered out of pity, a consolation prize for my perceived failure. They continued talking over each other, outlining my failure and their solutions. My dream, my passion, my years of hard work, all reduced to a problem requiring their intervention. My vision was dismissed as a misguided phase. Their absence yesterday, not hurtful abandonment, but reframed as rational, detached decision-making. As they spoke, a quiet voice inside me, a voice I'd suppressed for years, began to stir. And then, the bells above the door jingled again, and Mrs. Bailey walked in, carrying a small gift basket. She stopped short at the sight of my family gathered around the table, a tableau of judgment. Eileen, dear, I came to congratulate you on your opening. Is this your family? She asked, approaching with a warm, genuine smile. Dad glanced up, his expression a familiar dismissive wave reserved for service personnel. We are in the middle of a private discussion. Perhaps you could return during business hours. Mrs. Bailey's smile did not waver, it only widened. I am Adelaide Bailey, owner of Bailey's Bake Shop. Well, Bailey's Bake Shops now, since we have expanded to 5 locations. She extended her hand, which Dad suddenly seemed much more interested in shaking. The atmosphere shifted subtly, almost imperceptibly. Success was a language my family understood, and Mrs. Bailey spoke it fluently. Mom straightened in her chair. Rosy lowered her phone. Even Tyler's expression on the tablet screen sharpened with a sudden, professional interest. 5 locations, Dad repeated, his voice losing its condescending edge. That is quite an accomplishment in such a competitive industry. Indeed, Mrs. Bailey responded, placing the gift basket on the counter. Which is why I have complete faith in Eileen's success. Her creativity and business acumen remind me of myself at her age. Though I dare say her technical skills surpass what mine were then. She turned to me, her eyes alight with genuine pride. I wanted to bring this welcome basket and let you know how sorry I am to have missed your opening. My flight from the baking conference in Chicago was delayed. The contrast between Mrs. Bailey's sincere regret for missing one day due to an unavoidable professional commitment and my family's complete, deliberate absence despite weeks of notice hung in the air like the scent of burnt sugar, thick and acrid. You know, Mrs. Bailey continued, seemingly oblivious to the tension, Eliza spoke of her granddaughter's talent constantly at our community baking club. She always said you would surpass all expectations, Eileen. She believed your understanding of how food brings people together was your true gift. A memory surfaced then, sharp and painful. Grandma Eliza trying, with quiet persistence, to convince my parents to attend my high school culinary showcase. Their polite refusals. Her disappointed but ultimately unsurprised expression. She had always known. She had always understood that they would never truly understand my passion. Something inside me, something deep and fundamental, broke and then reformed in that moment, stronger and more defined than ever before. Why did none of you come yesterday? I asked, my voice surprisingly steady, cutting through whatever financial point Tyler was making through the tablet. An uncomfortable, heavy silence fell over the table. My family exchanged glances, a familiar, unspoken communication passing between them. "We told you, Rosa's promotion party," Mom finally said, a note of defensiveness in her voice. "It was a conflict we could not avoid," Dad added, his jaw tightening. "The company CEO was there," Rosy pointed out, her tone implying that was the ultimate, unchallengeable justification. "It was a career-defining moment." I shook my head, a slow, deliberate movement. The party started at noon. My opening began at 9. You could have come for even 30 minutes. One of you, any of you. More uncomfortable, accusatory silence. "Just tell me the truth," I pressed, my voice gaining strength, the anger finally breaking free. "For once, be honest about why my bakery, my dream, was not worth even a brief appearance." It was Tyler who finally spoke the truth, his digital presence perhaps making honesty easier, more detached. The family discussed it, Eileen, and decided that attending Rosy's event sent the right message about what achievements the family values. The words hit me like a physical blow, a punch to the gut. "You discussed it? All of you? You made a collective decision not to support me." Mom flushed, but lifted her chin defensively. "Real achievements deserve real celebrations, Eileen. Your sister has worked incredibly hard to earn her position. And I have not?" I gestured around at my bakery, my voice rising, raw with emotion. "I have worked 3 jobs for 7 years to save for this place. I have tested hundreds of recipes, built a business plan, secured a lease, navigated permits and health codes, and created something from nothing. How is that not an achievement?" "It is a nice effort, Eileen," Dad said, his patronizing tone like a slap. "But let us be realistic about the difference between opening a small bakery and becoming the youngest director in a Fortune 500 company. We are trying to help you," Mom added, her voice softening with what she likely believed was genuine concern. "Before this situation becomes any more financially damaging." Dad tapped the listing agreements, a stark visual of their intent. "You have 2 choices, Eileen. You can sign these papers and begin the process of extracting yourself from this mistake with our help, or you can continue on this path without our support, financial or otherwise." The ultimatum hung in the air between us, heavy and suffocating. I looked at each of their faces, seeing not malice, but a deeply ingrained, almost innocent, belief that they were acting in my best interest. They truly could not see the value in what I had built because it did not align with their narrow, corporate-driven definition of success. Mrs. Bailey placed a steadying, reassuring hand on my shoulder. The first customers of the day were already peering through the front windows, waiting for opening time, their faces curious and expectant. "I think you all need to leave now," I said quietly, the words firm despite the tremor in my hands. "I have a business to run." "Eileen," Dad began, his voice hardening, clearly not used to being defied. No, the word came out stronger than I expected, a quiet roar from a lifetime of suppressed dreams. "For my entire life, you have treated my passion as a phase to outgrow, a hobby to indulge, or a mistake to correct. Not one of you showed up yesterday for the most important day of my professional life. Now you arrive with plans to dismantle my dream before it has even had a chance to succeed. I do not want your help. Not like this." I walked to the door and held it open, my stance unwavering. "Please leave. Customers are waiting." They gathered their papers slowly, a collective air of disbelief, their expressions ranging from shocked to hurt to outright angry. As they filed past me, Dad paused at the threshold. "This conversation is not over, Eileen," he said quietly, his eyes cold. "When you are ready to be reasonable, call us." The bells jingled as they departed, leaving a stunned silence in their wake. I took a deep, fortifying breath, turned the sign to open, and welcomed my first customers with a professional smile that hid the raging storm within. The battlefield was clear, and I had, for the first time, chosen myself. The week following my family's impromptu, devastating intervention was, without a doubt, the darkest period since opening sweet gatherings. Despite my brave stand that morning, their words had planted insidious seeds of doubt, tiny whispers of inadequacy that grew louder with each slow business day. My initial creative energy dimmed, replaced by a dull ache of despair. I found myself going through the motions of running the bakery, measuring ingredients, kneading dough, decorating pastries, but without the joyful passion that had previously fueled every single batch. Sales declined as my own enthusiasm waned. Customers, keenly intuitive, could sense the difference in both the atmosphere and the food. Where once my pastries had been created with an infectious joy and meticulous attention to detail, they were now produced with technical proficiency, but lacked the special touch, the heart, that had made them truly exceptional. Annie, with her florist's eye for subtle shifts, noticed the change immediately. She began stopping by daily, sometimes bringing lunch from the cafe across the street, other times just quietly sitting with me during slow periods, her presence a silent comfort. Marcus developed a habit of bringing afternoon coffee and staying to help with cleanup, offering quiet encouragement and practical business advice. Their unwavering, unspoken support kept me functioning when giving up seemed like the easiest, most tempting option. My family, meanwhile, continued their relentless campaign of concerned pressure. Dad sent daily messages about the real estate agent being ready, when you are, each one a fresh stab. Mom forwarded information about medical school orientations with notes like, just keeping options open for you, dear. Rosy's social media featured not-so-subtle posts about knowing when to pivot and failing forward gracefully. Tyler, ever the numbers man, sent spreadsheets projecting my business decline with clinical, chilling precision. The most painful development, however, came when I discovered, through a casual, awkward comment from a distant cousin who finally came to the bakery, that my family had actively discouraged extended relatives from supporting my business. We were told you were figuring things out and preferred space to work through the process, she explained, her eyes full of apology. Otherwise, we all would have come to your opening. The revelation was a fresh betrayal, confirming the depth of their disownment. Each night, I returned to my tiny apartment physically exhausted, my muscles aching and emotionally drained, my spirit hollowed out. The bakery wasn't failing outright, but it was struggling, limping along, failing to gain the momentum I had so optimistically projected. The neighborhood foot traffic wasn't converting to regular customers at the rate I had anticipated. The special touches that made sweet gatherings unique, the personalized customer service, the innovative daily specials, required time and emotional energy that I was finding harder and harder to summon each day. The dream was fading, suffocated by doubt and disappointment. 2 weeks after opening, while cleaning out a dusty storage cabinet to make room for additional supplies, I discovered a forgotten box I had packed hastily during the move. Inside, nestled amongst old baking linens, was Grandma Eliza's recipe journal, its pages filled with her familiar, shaky handwriting and margin notes. As I flipped through the beloved, familiar pages, a sealed envelope, crisp and slightly yellowed with age, fell out. My name, in her unmistakable script, was written on the front. I stared at it, a profound sense of destiny washing over me, realizing she must have placed it there before her death, perhaps anticipating I would find it precisely when I finally opened my bakery. With trembling fingers, I broke the seal and unfolded the letter inside. My dearest Eileen, it began, her voice echoing in my memory. If you are reading this, you have found the courage to pursue your dream despite all obstacles. I always knew you would. From the first time your little hands pressed into dough beside mine, I saw in you a special gift, not just for baking, but for understanding how food brings joy and connection to others. Tears blurred my vision as I continued reading, her words a soothing balm to my wounded soul. Your parents and siblings may never understand your passion the way I do. They measure success by society's standards, while you measure it by the happiness you create. Neither is wrong, simply different. But never doubt that your path is valid and valuable. The world needs artists and nurturers as much as it needs executives and professionals. The letter continued, recounting specific, vivid memories of our time together, her keen observations of my growth as a baker. She mentioned recipes we had created, techniques she had patiently taught me, and moments when my unique perspective had improved a traditional approach. "Remember, sweet girl," the letter concluded, her wisdom a gentle embrace, "that success is not measured by others' recognition, but by the fulfillment you find in your work and the lives you touch with your gifts. My greatest joy has been watching you discover your passion. My greatest hope is that you will nurture it, even when others cannot see its worth." The letter ended with a postscript that broke the dam of my emotions, a powerful, simple truth. The true secret ingredient in any recipe is love. Your bakery will succeed because no one understands this better than you. I sat on the storage room floor, clutching her letter to my chest, sobbing until no more tears would come, a cathartic release of weeks of pain. Then, for the first time in weeks, I felt something profound shift inside me. Grandma Eliza had always believed in me, not despite my different path, but because of it. Her validation had never been contingent on me conforming to traditional success metrics. She had loved me for exactly who I was. That love was my true inheritance. The next morning, I woke with a clarity, a renewed purpose I had not felt since before the opening. I arrived at the bakery early, my spirit lighter, and began creating new recipes. Not the family tribute items that had gone largely unsold, those painful reminders of unrequited hope, but creations that reflected my true sensibilities, my authentic self. I developed a lemon lavender shortbread that captured the simple elegance I admired. I perfected a dark chocolate cherry sourdough that balanced complexity with comfort, a bread that told a story. I created a seasonal fruit galette with a messy, rustic appearance, but such harmonious flavors that customers closed their eyes in appreciation with the first bite. The passion was back, simmering and strong. Annie noticed the change immediately when she stopped by that afternoon. "The light is back in your eyes, Eileen," she observed, her gaze perceptive. "What happened?" I showed her Grandma Eliza's letter and explained how it had reminded me why I started baking in the first place. "I've been trying to prove my worth to people who measure by a different scale," I admitted, feeling a newfound lightness as the words left my lips. "It's time I stopped seeking their validation." "You know," Annie said thoughtfully, a kindred spirit, we newcomers to this neighborhood are all struggling with the slow build of customer awareness. What if we created an event together? Something to showcase all our businesses and build community connection." Marcus, arriving with his usual afternoon coffee, overheard the suggestion and immediately built upon it. "A community gathering. Exactly what your bakery is named for. We could have readings from local authors at my shop, flower arranging mini classes from Annie, and featured pastries from you." The idea took root, vibrant and promising, and began to grow. For the first time since my disastrous opening day, I felt excitement bubbling up again, a pure, unadulterated joy. Not the desperate hope for family approval that had colored my grand opening, but something more sustainable, more authentic. A vision based on community connection rather than family validation. Lucy Chin, the reporter who had covered my opening, called that week to follow up on how business was progressing. When I mentioned the collaborative community event we were planning, she immediately offered to write a feature piece. "This is exactly the kind of local business cooperation the Chronicle likes to highlight," she explained, her voice enthusiastic. A collaborative event featuring multiple new businesses could draw attention from throughout the city, not just the neighborhood. That evening, I made what felt like the most difficult, yet most liberating, decision since opening the bakery. I created a new signature item, a pastry that embodied my journey, Eliza's legacy, a cinnamon roll with apple filling and brown butter glaze that combined elements from both of my grandmother's most beloved recipes. I placed it prominently in my display case with a small card explaining its profound significance. What I did not do was create any new items bearing my immediate family's names or send them invitations to the upcoming community event. The announcement would go out on social media and through local channels, but I would no longer desperately seek their approval or attendance. As I locked up the bakery that night, my phone buzzed with another text from my father. "The commercial property market is heating up. We should list soon before values decline further. Call me." For the first time, I did not feel a stab of pain or doubt when reading his message. Instead, I felt the calm, unwavering certainty that I was choosing my own path forward. Whether Sweet Gatherings succeeded or failed, it would do so on my terms, as a reflection of my vision, rather than a compromise designed to win approval I might never receive. The 3 weeks following my discovery of Grandma Eliza's letter were filled with purposeful, exhilarating activity as Annie, Marcus, and I meticulously planned our community gathering event. What began as a simple cross-promotion grew into a vibrant, neighborhood-wide celebration as other local businesses eagerly joined our effort. The vintage clothing boutique down the street offered to provide outfits for a small fashion show. The craft brewery around the corner created a special pale ale specifically designed to complement my pastries. Even the yoga studio agreed to hold free mini-sessions in the park across from our shops, adding to the festive atmosphere. Rather than seeking external validation, a habit I was consciously breaking, I focused entirely on authentic connection. My social media strategy shifted from perfectly staged food photos to behind-the-scenes glimpses of bakery life. I shared honest stories about recipe development, including both the hilarious failures and the sweet successes. I posted about the burgeoning relationships forming between regular customers who met at my tables, creating a narrative of genuine community. The response was immediate and overwhelmingly positive, with engagement increasing significantly as people connected with the real, genuine journey rather than a polished, unattainable facade. Lucy Chen's feature article appeared in the Neighborhood Chronicle 2 weeks before our event, highlighting the collaborative spirit of the new businesses. Sweet Gatherings bakery owner Eileen Marshall exemplifies the community-focused entrepreneurship revitalizing the district, she wrote, her words singing with admiration. Her approach treats food not just as a product, but as a medium for human connection. The article was shared widely online, drawing attention from citywide publications and food bloggers. My social media followers grew steadily, with many expressing genuine excitement about the upcoming event. For the first time, I felt my bakery gaining genuine momentum, driven by authentic interest rather than obligation or pity. I did not send my family invitations to the community gathering, but I did post public announcements on all platforms. Whether they attended would be entirely their choice, based on genuine interest rather than guilt or manipulation. The power dynamic had shifted. The morning of the event arrived with perfect early autumn weather, crisp enough to make hot drinks appealing, but sunny enough for outdoor activities, a perfect canvas for our celebration. I had been baking since midnight, fueled by adrenaline and a quiet, profound joy, preparing an expanded menu featuring both customer favorites and special items created specifically for the day, including a prominent, almost reverent, display of Eliza's legacy cinnamon rolls. Annie arrived at dawn with elaborate, colorful flower arrangements for both inside and outside the bakery, transforming the space into a vibrant haven. Marcus set up a clever book exchange cart filled with baking-themed titles, adding to the intellectual charm. By 9 a.m., an hour before official opening, a line had already formed outside Sweet Gatherings, stretching down the block. "This is really happening," I whispered to Annie, my voice thick with emotion, as we peeked out the window at the growing crowd. "This is what happens when you build something authentic," she replied, squeezing my hand, her eyes shining. When we finally opened the doors, people flowed in steadily, filling the bakery with an incredible energy and joyful conversation. The display cases emptied faster than I could restock them, with Eliza's legacy selling out within the first hour. Every single table was filled with customers, sharing space with strangers who quickly became conversation partners, laughter and chatter filling the air. The community I had envisioned when naming my bakery was manifesting before my very eyes, tangible and beautiful. Mid-morning, a familiar figure appeared at the counter. Mrs. Bailey stood there, beaming with pride, accompanied by 3 other professional-looking women. "Eileen," she said, her voice full of warmth, "these are some of my former employees who have gone on to open their own successful bakeries." She introduced them. "We have formed something of a mentorship network, and we would love to have you join us." As I thanked her, overwhelmed by the incredible offer, I noticed my phone buzzing frantically with notifications. Photos from the community gathering were being shared widely, including by prominent food influencers who had made the trip specifically to attend. The hashtag Sweet Gatherings was trending locally, with people posting images of their delicious purchases and the lively, vibrant atmosphere. By noon, it became clear that I had drastically underestimated turnout. Pastry. Supplies were running dangerously low despite my extensive preparation. I was considering an early closure when Lucy arrived, not alone, but with the owner of Riverfront Restaurant, one of the most popular farm-to-table establishments in the city. "Mark has an interesting proposition for you," Lucy said after introducing us. Mark explained that he had been searching for a local bakery to supply bread and desserts for his restaurant. "Your flavor profiles and commitment to quality ingredients aligned perfectly with our ethos," he said, his eyes scanning my displays with genuine appreciation. "We would start with a small weekly order, but if it works well, we could expand significantly." As I discussed logistics with Mark, my head spinning with the implications, I spotted a woman photographing my menu and display cases with a professional camera. She introduced herself as a representative from the Small Business Development Grant Committee. "We focus on innovative local businesses that contribute to neighborhood revitalization," she explained, handing me her card. "Your collaborative approach with neighboring businesses is exactly the kind of economic development model we seek to support. I would love to send you grant application materials." The day continued to exceed all expectations, each hour bringing a new, thrilling opportunity. By closing time, Sweet Gatherings had served more customers in one single day than in the entire previous week combined. Every single pastry had sold, crucial business connections had formed, and most importantly, the bakery had firmly established itself as a genuine, thriving community hub. As I tallied receipts that evening, my hands still sticky with flour but my heart soaring, my phone buzzed with a text from an unexpected source. My father had sent a formal message, "Saw the coverage of your event today. Congratulations on the turnout. Available to discuss business growth strategies if interested." No warmth, no admission of his previous dismissiveness, no apology for his absence, but an undeniable acknowledgement of observable, quantifiable success. It was followed by messages from the rest of the family in quick succession. "Mom, your bakery looked lovely in the photos online, Eileen. The flower arrangements were exquisite. You always did have an eye for aesthetics. Rosy, that social media strategy is generating serious engagement. Clever approach targeting the community angle. My team was discussing it today. Tyler, wholesale accounts provide stable revenue streams. The restaurant connection is worth pursuing. Consent comparative analysis if helpful." Their messages reflected their unchanged perspectives, each viewing my success through their particular professional lens rather than truly understanding what truly mattered to me, the heart and soul I poured into Sweet Gatherings. Yet, there was a new tone of respect, however grudging and measured, in their communications. I responded politely but briefly to each, neither seeking their approval nor outright rejecting their tentative overtures. My focus remained steadfastly on building what I had started, rather than vindicating myself in their eyes. That battle, I realized, was over. In the following weeks, Sweet Gatherings experienced steady, organic growth. The partnership with Riverfront Restaurant provided a reliable wholesale income stream that stabilized finances, proving Tyler's models wrong. Several other restaurants reached out with similar inquiries. The small business grant application advanced to the final round of consideration, a testament to our community-focused approach. Most importantly, a core group of regular customers began to form, people whose names and preferences I came to know, whose lives intersected with mine through the simple, beautiful medium of food shared in a welcoming space. A month after the community gathering event, Sweet Gatherings recorded its first consistently profitable week, a milestone that felt like scaling a mountain. The achievement prompted me to hire my first employee, Jessica, a culinary school graduate who shared my philosophy about food as a means of connection. With help in the kitchen, I could focus more on creative development and the crucial community-building aspects of the business. My family maintained a cautious, respectful distance, occasionally sending messages that revealed they were monitoring my progress from afar. Their communications always carried an undercurrent of surprise at my continuing success, as if they were still waiting for the inevitable failure they had so confidently predicted. I responded with polite updates, but no longer felt the desperate need for their understanding that had once consumed me. In this new chapter, I found a quiet, deeply rooted confidence growing. Sweet Gatherings was becoming exactly what I had envisioned, not because I had finally won my family's approval, but because I had stopped measuring success by their standards and started living according to my own. 6 months after the community gathering event, Sweet Gatherings had evolved beyond my initial vision in the most wonderful, unexpected ways. The bakery had firmly established itself as a beloved neighborhood institution, with regular customers who had become true friends and a reputation that drew visitors from across the city. The small business grant had funded an expanded kitchen and the addition of charming outdoor seating, allowing for increased production and capacity. My most meaningful innovation, however, was the creation of Chosen Family Sundays, a monthly event where customers could reserve the entire bakery for a shared community meal. I provided the space, artisanal bread, and delicious desserts, while attendees brought dishes to share, fostering a beautiful potluck atmosphere. The concept resonated deeply with people seeking connection and belonging in our often fragmented urban environment. Annie, Marcus, and several other local business owners had become my closest friends and most trusted advisors. We met weekly to share business challenges and victories, supporting each other through the inevitable ups and downs of entrepreneurship. Mrs. Bailey's mentorship network provided professional development opportunities one could never have accessed alone, and her wisdom helped me navigate complex business decisions with newfound confidence. My relationship with my birth family entered a new phase during this period, one characterized by careful rebuilding on my terms rather than a desperate seeking of approval on theirs. The change began subtly, with their gradual acknowledgement of Sweet Gatherings as a legitimate, even impressive, business rather than a mere hobby or passing phase. The first significant shift occurred when my father, unprompted, attended a special event at the bakery without attempting to offer unsolicited business advice. He arrived alone, observed the operations with his analytical eye, and purchased several items before leaving with a simple, yet profoundly meaningful, "You have built something functional here." From my father, this constituted high praise. More importantly, he had come on his own initiative and engaged with my world without trying to remake it according to his own rigid standards. My mother began stopping by, occasionally with friends, a form of social acknowledgement that, surprisingly, meant more than her words ever could. "I told my hospital board about your bakery, Eileen," she mentioned during one visit, a hint of genuine pride in her voice for the very first time. Several of them have become regular customers. Rosy's approach to reconciliation involved professional respect before personal connection. "Your social media presence has serious engagement metrics, Eileen," she noted during a rare Sunday visit. "My team actually referenced your community building strategy in a recent presentation." Later, more quietly, she added, her voice softer than I'd ever heard it, "I think I've been comparing our accomplishments since we were kids, Eileen. Maybe we could just be sisters instead of competitors." Tyler made the most dramatic gesture, flying in from New York specifically to visit the bakery. He arrived with his usual spreadsheets, but also with an uncharacteristic humility. "Your financial trajectory has defied standard industry projections," he admitted, poring over my books. "I was working from models that did not account for the community investment factor you prioritized. There are some lessons here for traditional business approaches." I welcomed these overtures with cautious optimism. The wounds from their absence at my opening and their subsequent intervention attempt had healed, but they had left scars, indelible reminders of the past. I established clear boundaries around how we discussed my business and my choices, making it explicitly clear that respectful engagement was welcome while controlling or dismissive behavior was not. "I am open to rebuilding our relationship," I told my father during a particularly honest conversation, my voice firm. "But that requires acceptance of who I actually am, not who you wish I would become." The most profound healing in my life, however, had nothing to do with family reconciliation. It came from the deep, unwavering realization that my worth was not, and never would be, determined by their validation. The journey from desperately seeking their approval to confidently finding my own measure of success had transformed me in ways that extended far beyond business ownership. It had reshaped my understanding of myself. As Sweet Gatherings thrived, I further expanded the space to include Eliza's Corner, a special area featuring my grandmother's photo, her beloved recipe books, and a small library of baking resources. This sacred space became the heart of our community outreach programs, including free baking classes for underprivileged youth and a weekly senior citizens coffee gathering, a testament to Grandma Eliza's enduring legacy. A year after opening, Sweet Gatherings was featured in a national publications article on community-centered business models driving neighborhood revitalization. The writer highlighted not just the exceptional quality of our products, but the intentional cultivation of connection that made the bakery truly special. Marshall has created more than a successful business, the article concluded, her words validating my deepest aspirations. She has established a template for how commercial spaces can foster genuine community in an age of digital isolation. On the first anniversary of Sweet Gatherings, we hosted a joyous celebration that filled the bakery and spilled out onto the sidewalk, a true community festival. My family attended, not as central figures or judgmental critics, but as guests among many, taking their place in the wider, loving community that had embraced my vision. As I looked around at the bustling gathering that evening, my heart full to bursting, I realized how perfectly the reality had come to match the name I had chosen all those years ago. Sweet Gatherings had indeed become a place where sweetness, both literal and metaphorical, brought people together, creating connections that tasted like home. The journey had not followed the path I initially imagined, filled with familial glory and approval, but it had led to a destination far more meaningful and authentic than I could have ever planned. The most valuable lesson I learned throughout this transformative year was not about business strategy or even about the intricate art of baking. It was about the fundamental nature of validation and the true, unshakable source of confidence. My family's initial inability to recognize the value in my dream had initially seemed like the greatest, most insurmountable obstacle to my success. In reality, it became the unexpected, powerful catalyst for my most significant personal and professional growth. Sometimes, our dreams succeed not despite family disappointment, but because it forces us to find our true strength, to forge our own path, independent of external expectations. When external validation disappears, we must learn to trust our own vision and values, to be our own biggest champion. That painful, often lonely, process of separation and self-trust ultimately leads to a more profound, more authentic achievement than any success that comes through simply conforming to others' expectations. My bakery, my dream, my life, they were finally, truly mine. I would love to know if any of you have experienced something similar in your own lives. Have you ever had to choose between following your passion and trying to meet the often rigid expectations of others? Did you find your own version of chosen family along the way, people who championed you when your own family couldn't or wouldn't? Please share your stories and thoughts in the comments below. I truly want to hear what you think and what your journey has been like.